Hi Saket, welcome to Network Capital. Our vision is to democratize inspiration, and we reach out to leaders such as yourself to understand your career, your vision, your inspiration, your mentors, and even some of your challenges. So, could you get us started by telling us who you are and what you do today?
Sure, Kash. First of all, thank you for having me here. It's absolutely a pleasure. Kash, I'm a young entrepreneur who runs a young cybersecurity company. We started in 2012, and it's been 5 years that we've been running this, cybersecurity services and platforms company. When I say cybersecurity services and platforms, we are a B2B services provider which helps some of the largest financial institutions, e-commerce companies, uh, airports, insurance companies in the world to go ahead and secure their digital infrastructure. So what we do is anything that you can think of when it comes to technology, we would be the people helping some very, very large companies in securing their digital infrastructure or that particular piece of technology.
And how do you do that?
So we are hired by these companies to go ahead and try and penetrate their infrastructures, which can be accessible both from the outside or from the inside. And in order to do that, we've got now a team of close to 150 people, and these are all certified cybersecurity professionals, which with the only expertise of understanding that particular technology very, very well, so that once you understand the technology and how things work inside the technology, you can find out hacks or ways to bend the technology or the way it's supposed to use, so that you can get the outputs that you want the system to produce rather than the ones that it was originally designed to produce.
That's so interesting. Could you share a bit more about it? Like, who are these people? I'm trying to understand in the context of skilling. People always try and see where are the jobs of the future are going to come from, and cybersecurity it sure does seem to be a field like that.
I strongly have a feeling, and I've said this in the past also, Utkarsh, that uh, you know, rewind 10 years, and what PHP, Java, ASP.NET used to be 10 to 15 years back. That you would be really a champion engineer today at a very, very senior position in some or the other system integration or digital transformation companies in the world if you had a good grip on how programming works or networking and infrastructure works 10 to 15 years back. Exactly in the same way, I feel that there are today a couple of fields. One of them definitely being cybersecurity. To name a few other, it has to be artificial intelligence, augmented reality, big data analytics. You've got like a long plethora of new age technologies that's coming up. I feel anybody who champions in any of these fields would really be preparing himself for the same thing which he would prepare 15 years back while doing Java, PHP, or ASP.NET. So I believe that these new age technologies, without a doubt, are going to redefine the way humans have been living on the planet. And again, I feel thanks to access to things like Coursera, Udemy, NPTEL, OCW. These are all free of cost available online lectures of the MITs and the Stanfords and the IITs of the world, where it's become fairly simple for somebody with a 5,000 rupee phone and a free Geo internet connection to actually go ahead and learn something that he or she is extremely passionate about. So I feel that's where skilling, although you require new age skills, but the access to understand and evolve yourself with competencies of these new age skills is fairly simple, and definitely far easier to access than what it was even 3 to 4 years back.
That's such good and practical advice, Saket. It'll benefit so many of our members across the world. Because, cybersecurity is not just going to be a job creator in India, but I believe across the world, whether it's Europe or Africa or the US or Middle East, wherever.
Sure. So if you want me to like just add to a point out there,
Absolutely.
last year KPMG did a very, very interesting survey where they basically had this survey done for over 100 CEOs across the globe, where they were asked a question that what is it that is the one thing which doesn't let you sleep at night? And you'll be surprised to know that the number one thing which came out as an output was cybersecurity. Today, you're living in a world where not one but multiple Fortune 500 companies have been thrashed. Their market caps have fallen in the tune of 30, 40, 50% in the span of a couple of weeks. Equifax is a classic example. I should not say classic example because it's just been an example in the last 4 weeks where we saw a
But
drop
very
in the market
unfortunate.
cap.
I mean, we saw the market cap really plummet overnight.
Absolutely. It fell from close to $18 billion on September 1st, and today is close to October 1st that we're sitting at, and today it's close to $11 billion. From 18 to $11 billion of market cap being washed away. And I'm not even talking about the top line, the bottom line impact that the company has been through. I'm not even talking about the hundreds of the lawsuits that have been filed against the company and the amount of money and the reputational damage that will go into amending this. And by the way, Equifax is a company which has been there for more than 100 years.
Yeah.
So this just talks about the degree of uncertainty in the board members, in the leadership teams of not just the small companies but global Fortune 500 companies, especially in the North American and European regions, because they have been, for whatever reasons, the champions of adopting digital. Of course, that's very, very quickly changing now in India, and if you want, happy to talk about that. But if you really see the history of the last 10 years, the initial adoption of technology certainly has happened in a far more penetrating manner when you talk about the United States, as a result of which today you are actually having an economy, a $16 trillion economy that the US sits on, having more than 80% of their transactions that go digitally. And when that is the degree of dependence on technology, when an Equifax happens, when a Deloitte happens, where over 250,000 employees of their firm, their emails are accessed for over 6 months, and this is one of the big 4 financial audit companies on the planet. You can imagine what kind of uncertain world we are staying at when it comes to cybersecurity. And again, my goal is not to make people fearful or by any means do any kind of a fear mongering, but we have to call a spade a spade. We are living in a world where the market caps have actually fallen, where CEOs have really been sacked, and the boards have really taken drastic measures to go ahead and secure themselves and their companies. So there is a real requirement out there. Individuals, organizations, policymakers who can embrace that, work towards that, make that as an opportunity. That can be something very, very big in the near future.
Very well put. But to be sure, Deloitte was how many hackings you mentioned?
So Deloitte, the way it happened was that in total there have been 250,000 employees that they have globally.
Right.
Of course, they're a very large company. What was found out was, and the investigations are still going on, but what it points towards is there were hackers who had an access to every single email account of each one of the employees of the 250,000 employee base of Deloitte, not for one day, not for 1 month, but for 6 long months. So
Wow.
imagine this. They are the auditors of the financial numbers that multiple large and small and medium sized companies depend on. And imagine the sensitivity of data which is there. And I'll tell you the funny thing. Deloitte also has a wing which provides cybersecurity audit and services. Now, my goal of mentioning this is not to pull down Deloitte by any means, but imagine this, a company which is themselves providing cybersecurity services and is a multi-billion-dollar company. If their emails can be remotely accessed for over 6 months without them having any clues about it, imagine what the state of affairs is in the world right now.
Oh, absolutely. Now, pivoting to you, Saket, how did you get interested in this subject and how did you come up with the idea of your company? I'd love to hear more about it.
Because I believe that everybody has a hacker in them. Hacking is the other word for curiosity. Hacking is the other word for anybody who wants to know something beyond what they already know and trying to twist and bend things and come out with something interesting. I personally believe that anybody who's alive, anybody who's receptive to the environment around him would always be a curious person, in other words, a hacker. So if I were to define hacking according to Oxford Dictionary, when you make something do something which it was not originally designed to do, that's called hacking. In other words, if I use my toothbrush to clean my television, that's hacking, because it was not originally designed to clean the television, but I used it to do that. That's exactly in the same way how a hacker would go to a website and write certain queries and extract the database, the user database, with say the credit card information from the website with a couple of inputs that it's providing. The website was not originally designed to spill out all the information, but the hacker made it do that with the queries that he put in the website. That is cyber hacking as we know it, or the general reference of what hacking is all about. But if you were to ask me, I believe hacking is a lifestyle.
Right.
Hacking is what a Steve Jobs does, or what an Albert Einstein does, because Albert Einstein had the access to every single resource, and equanimously that every person during his time had an access to. However, he processed those resources, be it mathematical formulae or different kinds of access to different study material. He processed that in a particular way, in which he came out with formulas, with theories, which really were something that were not seen by a normal Tom, Dick, and Harry like you or me. So that is a hacker. Steve Jobs, as an example, is somebody. He had an access to the same set of resources. He saw the same mobile phones that you and I saw before the iPhone was launched. But he thought this is a shitty way of really talking to people. And I feel I can redesign, re-engineer the entire way in which the experience of a human being when he interacts with the cell phone can totally change. And the rest is history. So he was a hacker. He made things do and behave in a certain way that he could see possible, which the others missed out on. For me, that's a hacker. And therefore, I believe anybody who's gone out of the way to invent, discover, or redefine anything is potentially a hacker. And that's why I don't have to be termed. A lot of people calling me ethical hacker, and I don't see a requirement of the word ethical or non-ethical. A hacker is simply a hacker. It can be literally.
So you were driven by curiosity more than anything else.
Yes, absolutely. I was driven to be more specific about the curiosity of how the internet works, how the computers work, how a machine which is so small can compute in such a powerful manner, which gives an access to it's like an extension of your left brain, where the processing can be so much more efficient, so much more accurate. And thanks to the internet, the connectivity, and I that's the reason I like comparing the internet as something as groundbreaking as the invention of the wheel. I believe it was a couple of tens of thousands of years back when the wheel was invented. Before the wheel was there, the distance between two places used to be a couple of days at least, even if it's a couple of 100 kilometers, because you had to either walk or ride on a particular animal. The moment you had the wheels, the speed at which you could reach to places really went up drastically, and the time really shrinked. I compare the internet in the same way, where today, because there are 2 billion people which are connected on the internet, which is close to 1/3 of the total global population of 7 billion people. So you're talking about 1 out of every 3 individuals on the planet today are separated by a distance of 10 milliseconds, because that's the total time that it takes to send an email from one ID to the other. So if you see, the distance has drastically shrinked, and therefore that curiosity of thinking and understanding what this technology can be and the possibilities around that really excited me always.
Yeah, one research puts that 156 million emails are sent every minute on the internet.
Oh, absolutely.
So you went to engineering school, and you mentioned that you've always been in love with computers and computer science. So walk us through the process in college. Like, did you take a specific major, or did you do some professional certifications? How did you technically equip yourselves so that others in a similar space who are driven by curiosity can maybe follow suit and learn through your example?
So, one thing which I personally believe, and I really believe this in a very, very strong way, is that today, thanks to the access to the internet, you really don't need an external, you know, college that you need to attend with a $100,000 a year fees. Basically, it means you don't need to go to a Harvard or a Stanford if you're really curious about what you really want to learn. In my college days, I was always a geek. I'm one of those guys throughout my school. I was among the top boys who scored the top marks in mathematics and computer science and physics. Well, probably always I flunked in a geography and a chemistry, and like the subjects which did not interest me. And the reason why I say this was that I was always curious to work around problems involving mathematics and computer science. The result was I got into a college called LNMIIT. This is Ellen Mitchell's dream to create an IIT, and it's a phenomenal college that if you don't know about, you must visit. It's right next to Jaipur, with the only focus on IT. So there is no other branch. There's no civil mechanics.
I have some friends who went there. I'm
Oh,
familiar.
so you would be familiar. It's a phenomenal.
No, but for
place to be.
other members outside India, they won't. So please give us give us some
Oh yes,
context.
it's a college which is I say it's the best of both the worlds. When I say best of both the worlds, I think the problem that most of private colleges in India face is something called the management quota, where even people who don't deserve to be a part of the college, I mean, they are bought in because your dad had the money to pay and put you in that engineering college. So and that's officially allowed because of certain reasons. That's the bad part of a private college. The bad part of a government college is unfortunately the reservation system is misused in a very, very big way, where I personally am totally for reservations for the right deserving people, but definitely not for people who just fall in a category but are economically well off and who don't really require the reservation schemes to get into an IIT. The best part of this college is because it's a joint venture between the government of Rajasthan and Mr. Ellen Mittal. The objective here is not to make money, so obviously there's no management quota. And at the same time, because it's a semi-private, semi-government college, there is absolutely no reservation of any kind. So the only way you qualify to become a student of this college is through your merit. And it's through your JEE marks and AIEEE marks. These are the two engineering entrance examinations that most people take in India. So that really brings together the best of both the worlds. It's not a very old college, so not many people know about it. But yeah, I mean, it's really a nice place.
But you clearly seem to have had a good educational experience in college, and
Without a doubt.
and I loved the fact that you said that essentially access to higher education has been democratized, so anyone with the hunger and drive can learn, and I think that's what you did yourself.
I'll come to that, man. One thing which I just thought about this, and because you spoke about a beautiful line that access to education, not just higher education, deep tech education has been democratized. I remember, I was a couple of months back. It's a very interesting interview. I was on the front page of the Financial Times in Netherlands, and
Wow, congrats.
no, thank you. We are one of those fortunate companies that are fairly covered in a nice way, and we don't have a PR team, by the way. So it's all
Even better.
organic. Yeah. So the reason I mentioned about this interview is because I was trying to give a context of what potentially India is all about, and there were numbers which I gave the journalist, and I told him that, look, today India has more than 400 million smartphones. You were talking about 400 million people in a country where the average age is the lowest on the planet, the working population that is there. I like saying this, India is getting younger every year.
No, you're
because
right.
The average age is actually going down. Now imagine this, let's take stats. I'm saying 400 million people with smartphones in India today. If you take only 10% of that, which use the smartphone in a way in which they're using it to get an access to the right kind of education, which is today, by the way, available free of cost. The Stanfords and the MITs and the IITs of the world, all of them have majority of their major courses put online absolutely free of cost. I'm saying 10%, not even, that's a very realistic assumption to make. 10% of the total population with a smartphone in a country like India if they get an access to great education through which they can acquire great skills, where the dependency of a middleman or getting an access to a local teacher or a skill provider is absolutely removed. And the dropping prices of cell phones today, about the free internet available, 4G free internet available in India at the cheapest prices compared to anywhere on the planet. It's a recipe for a truly curious young man with a country with the highest amount of young working people on the planet. It's a recipe that in the next 5 years, we would be producing not one, not tens, but hundreds of millions of skilled, deep tech understanding individuals working in whatever respective fields that you would think of. And they would be redefining anything and everything on the planet. And why I give that number of 10% out of 400 million is, imagine this, I'm in a country like Netherlands with a total population of only 30 million people. And when that is the case, you're talking about the worst case scenario in a country like India, because the West has always been proud. I'm talking both about the North American and the European story. They've been proud of the fact that they've been able to get to the developed status because of the skills and education that's imparted at the grassroots level of people who are born in the West. Today, for the first time, I believe, especially in the last 24 months, because if I were to give you numbers, in the last 24 months, the number of smartphones have jumped from close to 15 million to 300 million, like 300 to 400 million. That's the kind of jump that you're talking about in the last 24 to 36 months. That's the average time frame that is there. So when you see this sudden jump which has happened, finally people have in their hands the power which they always deserve to have, and through that power they're getting skilled, they're getting empowered. In the words of Elon Musk, today a man with a smartphone, a normal $100 smartphone, today has more power than what 10 years back the President of United States had in totality. If you think of it, talking to people over video, getting an access to information, all of that. So think of it like that. And when he saw these numbers, and his last question was, Saket, this sounds awesome. This sounds brilliant that, India is really on a path where it can really redefine the future. And he asked me that you sound like a very, very, very articulate and a very, very objective man, giving these numbers and stats, and of course a lot of other answers that I gave. So he asked me that, tell me how many people are like you in India, how many people are really doing stuff that you're doing and can be like you. So my answer to him was very simple. Look, in India I'm just a soldier in an army, and there are people far more smarter than me and doing phenomenally well, and I invited him to India. So he'll be surprised. This title of the story what he wrote, and this was on the front page, that 26-year-old soldier in an army when India is completely changing.
That's beautiful. So powerful.
So yeah, and the ambassador of Netherlands out here, of course, he continues to be a great mentor of mine since the last couple of years. He translated that because this was in Dutch, and he sent me the English version. And he said, Saket, this is one of the most brilliant interviews that I've seen an Indian giving, and I'm so glad you're giving this, because this is actually sending out the right message of what India truly is all about.
And the true potential.
Absolutely, and these are real numbers that I'm talking about. And
since you spoke of mentors, in fact, that was my next question.
Sure.
So tell me more about your mentors. Who have they been and how have they helped you?
So I believe there's a early in my life, I realized, it's still early, but earlier than early in my life, I realized this, that, I was...
Your grand age is 27.
Yeah, I turned 27 a couple of months back. So I realized this, that, there's a saying, it says, true wisdom is not about what you know, it's about knowing what you don't know. And this is very important to understand in context of mentors. There's one way of living where you say that, look, because you have certain degrees of technical understanding of certain things, you've championed the world and you know everything. In fact, there's another saying that says that if a man says he knows everything, you're sure that he doesn't know anything. Why I say that is that, see, I'm a very young man to be running a services company, especially on the B2B sector. And I don't have any shames in accepting that. I feel that roles of mentors in my life have been one of the most phenomenal things which have happened in my life. is I'm truly blessed with some of the most senior leaders, executives from around the world, which have been in so many ways guiding me, blessing me, mentoring me, whatever you want to say, to make sure that the direction in which my and my team's energies are channelized is the right one. Now, I always say that look, being young comes with a lot of advantages. Like, we're full with energy, we work 24/7, we work. It's phenomenal to work, and there's just so much happening. And my average team age is 26. We're 150 people team right now. So it's really brilliant out there. But
Clearly one of the youngest companies to be doing so well. And all of these 150 are in Delhi or spread out?
So we are spread out. So we've got people in India. We've got them across Bangalore, across Bombay and Delhi. In the US, it's between New York and San Francisco. So that's the two geographies that we are active in. We of course serve global customers. But coming to your question of mentors, all of these people, I feel when we have a lot of energy as young people, energy, think of it like a vector quantity. A vector quantity needs the right scalar, that is the energy that I say, where you have the right magnitude of what you're putting in, because you have to put in your hours, you have to put in a degree of knowledge for that particular sector, and then there is a direction to the vector also. So that direction is just always provided to you using mentors. People who have been there, done that, have seen the same situations that you go through, and simply short circuit your way, saying that look, if you do X, Y would be the output, and you better learn from that. So the application, or the the value of a mentor, I don't think it can be in any ways more overstated than a use case like ours, where we've been able to build a services company. And why do I insist on the word services is because, you see, as a products company, if I was in e-commerce companies or a cab aggregator company, I could be doing anything internally. Anything is a wrong word to say, but relatively what I do on the inside doesn't get reflected on the outside. As an example, when you use Google or Facebook or Skype, any of these services or products, you don't really care about whether the guy developing Facebook was in his pajamas or what was, or he was high while coding the entire thing. As long as the product serves your purpose, you go ahead and get the product done. But
point well taken.
As a services company, remember, I am the product. So when I have to personally go and meet individual CEOs and CIOs and CFOs of some of the largest Fortune 500 companies across the globe, and provide them with information of what we do, how we do things, and then scale the business from that. Yes, it's not as scalable as what a product would be, but on the other side, the experience of learning, the experience of seeing how the world really operates is so very massive. I think a 27-year-old couldn't ask for anything more.
Absolutely. Without naming the Fortune 500 company, could you walk us through an example of a 26, 27-year-old CEO entering the boardroom or the CEO's room and essentially pitching a startup? What have some of the learnings or lessons been from that?
No, so the good part is there's a lot of customers that we can name, because
Okay.
just to set the context of what is the kind of customers we work with. Of course, most of my customers in the US make me sign a 15-page non-disclosure agreement. but since we are recording this in India, we've
But our members are global, so whatever you're more comfortable with.
Yeah, so like just to give you some background, like for example in India, right, if you bank on an ICICI bank or an HDFC bank, when you book your tickets on an Indigo or a SpiceJet, when you land at the Delhi airport, when you recharge your Tata Sky, when you book a pizza on the Pizza Hut application, or when you transact using the Bheem application that was launched by the Prime Minister, all of these are our customers, and we are the ones doing your security when you're doing any of these activities for any of these brands. So that's the kind of context that we've got.
For our international customers, these are some of the largest brands in the country, and so it's very impressive that a 26-year-old is leading the security charter for them. It's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. So that's the kind of customers we've been able to build, and you'll be surprised, by the way, the marketing budget that we've spent over the last 4 years is exactly 0 rupees or zero
So you
dollars.
don't have a marketing person.
No marketing person because there's no marketing budget.
So these doors, they open up because you've done your job well so far.
It's completely organic. See, today again, thanks to digitization, if you fuck up in your service, you can be marketing whatever you want, but people will not come back to you because it's a closed community. Today, all the CIOs, that is Chief Information Officers of large companies or Chief Technology Officers of companies, most of them are connected through WhatsApp groups where they always recommend or blacklist vendors depending on the kind of experience that they've got. So exactly in the same way, if you do good work with 1, 2, 3 guys, the recommendation automatically goes from one CTO to the other, and when that goes, that's far more stronger and that's far more enriching than what a marketing campaign would ever be able to bring to you.
No, true. Hey, so coming back to the example of the CEO, so how was it like? Was it challenging? Was it tough? Was it full of roses and what have you?
No, so one thing is that I fairly found it extremely simple, and I'll explain you why I say that, right? You see, one way of looking at it is that, look, you're a tiny little small company trying to enter, a very, very large organization where probably, the guy with the least amount of salary in the room would still be earning more than your total turnover. And that's one way of looking at it, saying that, look, I'm just a startup trying to pitch to a very, very large company. However, there's a different way of looking at it. The other way is this Mr. X Fortune 100 company that I am trying to enter or give a pitch to the boardrooms. And again, I've made, I think this year in fact, it's been 9 months in this year, I've made close to 11 board presentations, out of which half of them were for Fortune 500 companies in the US. So just to give you some background, like what is the other way of looking at it? The other way of looking at it is that, look, today this company is trying to transform itself digitally, and believe me, this is the same story with almost every company on the planet. I think we are beyond that debate that if you don't digitally transform yourself, you will perish in the near future.
Yeah, it is like it's a horizontal.
It's a horizontal. You're absolutely right. It's no longer a vertical, and that's why the rise of the chief digital officers and the chief information officers on the board and things like that. However, coming back, think of it like this: 90% or probably 95% of the board members do not belong on the technology space. It'll hardly be 1 or 2 guys sitting on the board who understand technology. However, the entire board now is in consent that if we don't transform ourselves digitally, we would perish in the near future. Therefore, their business is going to be dependent on the centerpiece called technology moving forward. Now, when you move forward with technology, the biggest risk that you face while embracing technology is where you don't want an Equifax, you don't want a Deloitte, you don't want a Sony or a Target or a Home Depot kind of hack to happen to you, because it really can tear away the entire reputation, the entire essence on which you've built the company. I think Equifax is the best example, as we spoke in the beginning. It's a company more than 100 years old, and it so beautifully embraced technology in transforming their physical methods of onboarding people to completely going towards technology. And now that they were on technology and they were hacked, you can now see what's happening. Coming back to your question, so the way of looking at it is, look, they are going to use technology to transform. Transformation comes at a risk of that technology being hacked. And today, technology being hacked in a company is no longer a problem of the technology team, but is a board level problem. It's a business problem because it directly impacts the top line and the bottom line of the company. The result, they need experts, they need consultants, they need deep expertised, deep tech people who understands technologies to the levels of zeros and ones and the registers on a silicon chip, and what the machine learning and the machine code of that particular program that is running in that particular piece of technology is there. And from ground up, they want people who understand the entire stack of what technology looks like, and then help them assess and tell them what the cyber risk that they are sitting on. Can they do it themselves by investing? It's too much of an investment and generally not the core competence area that any company would want to venture at. That's where you require an external consultant. That's where you require an external help from. And that's where companies like us come in.
But you would also be facing competition from other players
Oh,
who are
absolutely.
trying.
We faced competition from Deloitte, by the way.
So, yeah.
No, but not to pull them down. The fact is this, that look, if a Deloitte can
So
get
what
hacked
clinches
and-
it in your favor?
It's simple, right? Think of it like this. God forbid, but if you've got a problem in your heart, right? Would you want to go ahead to a general, Lilavati hospital?
No, I'd like to
where
go
you
to a
would
specialist for sure.
Precisely. So today you want to go to a Medanta super speciality cardio care hospital. I am that Medanta super speciality cyber care hospital for companies, and that's where building a deep tech team who understands technology in true sense comes into the picture, and that's where providing them with the right services and showing them results. Now, what do I mean by results? I'll give a small example. I think this example will be from last week, where this is one of the largest conglomerates of India, where I was basically able to go ahead. When I say I am talking about my team,
Right.
my team was basically able to go ahead and take a complete access of the entire e-commerce division of this conglomerate. When I say complete access, any user, his usernames, his password, his stored credit card details, all of this was taken and access with. It's some part in the world. I don't want to specify which part,
Right.
because the regulatory and compliances issues that come in, because you have to disclose in certain parts of the world if you're hacked. But this is a e-commerce company valued over $1 billion, and it's a part of a much larger group that is there. And we were able to get an access to anything and everything on this website. This is just last week, by the way.
Wow.
Now, this is just one example, and this is the deep tech expertise, and this is the testimonial of the kind of experts and skills that our team possesses.
And where do you find these deep tech skills? Because one of the constant complaints that you hear from CEOs and others is that it's very difficult to find top talent in India. I mean, you're a global company as well, but I don't know how.
No, but of course, most of our people are Indian as of now. Again, we are a small company in terms of the numbers of people. We're just 150 people right now. But coming back to the point of how do we find talent, being a young company, the advantage is that I feel the excitement of the work that we do really pulls a lot of talent to us rather than we going to hunt for it. Small example: an average post that we do on a LinkedIn gets us anywhere between 700 to 800 responses
From you?
from my company,
Okay.
from Lucidus, when we
Right.
post that, because we have been thankfully doing the right work with the right customers and making the right set of noise. When I say noise, in terms of we are fortunate to be endorsed by a lot of awards and recognitions.
And you personally have won a whole bunch of them: Forbes, Business World, and this Financial Times Netherlands, which I didn't know about.
There's a lot of them. In fact, one of the things that we are extremely proud of is the government of India officially recognized us as the best IT startup of the country at the National Entrepreneurship Awards 4 months back.
Congratulations.
And Rajnath Singh sir gave us the award, and of course we feel very, very honored and privileged to be selected in that category. But the point is this, that when you're doing the right set of work, and when you see the job, can you imagine how exciting it is for a techie, where he's basically, it's like license to kill, where you're getting the license to be able to officially allowed to be penetrating the largest banks, the largest aviation companies, the largest insurance companies on the planet